Good morning to all of you. Thank you for coming. My name is Antonio Lopes. I'm the coordinator of the PETAL project. It is within the scope of the PETAL project that we are offering this international conference. And I would like, first of all, to welcome you all to the University of Granada. It is indeed a pleasure to have a conference of this scope with so many different contributions to this challenge that we posed to all of our friends and scholars concerning the new trends in foreign language teaching. Before I proceed, I would just like to explain exactly what the project is about, so that you may also understand why this conference is being offered. And then I would then introduce you to Melinda Dooly, who was very nice to. It was very nice for her to accept our invitation to be a plenary session speaker. The PETAL project is about task-based language learning, which is, as you know, currently one of the most important approaches to language learning, along with, for example, CLIL. And this project was about encouraging teachers to use task-based language learning activities in the classroom using ICT resources. Now, we have done that. We have done most of the work, and the project is scheduled to end in June 2016. And we thought it might be a good idea to reflect on what has been going on in this area of foreign language teaching, as far as approaches, methodologies are concerned. And so this conference aims at shedding some light in this area. I was expecting Raul to be here. Raul is our host, and he has put an enormous effort into the organization of this conference. Maybe he's still working on the organization. Still, since we were scheduled to start at 9 o'clock, I will simply ask Melinda to start. Melinda is from the Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona. She has been working on telecollaborative language learning for many years now, about 15 years or so. And she's going to present a lecture entitled, I didn't learn it by heart, Intercultural and Telecollaborative Learning. What are our tasks as teachers? Okay, Melinda, thank you so much for accepting, and the floor is yours.
Okay, I have to get coordinated here, okay? Yesterday in the afternoon, all the videos worked, okay? This is the first lesson of working with technology, is expect the worst, and so probably at least one video is not going to work here, but we'll make it through. And I can't. What? See? Here we go. Okay. First of all, I want to thank the coordinators of this project for inviting me here. I appreciate it. I appreciate you getting up on so early and being here as well. I'm just kidding about this, sorta. No, I'm not going to read each slide, but I do think this joke is very much related to the topic that I want to go into, which I will eventually, hopefully, tie into task-based language teaching. First of all, the reason that I think the joke that I made there is I believe that we're not just language teachers. I believe that our task is to prepare our students to be good communicators. That's our role right now. And as the world changes, it becomes more multilingual, multimodal, multicultural. Our task grows expansively in this sense. So that's the main idea that I'm going to be going over throughout my talk here. But before I go further, I'm going to have to, you let me know if I mess something up here, but I can't see what I'm doing. So pulling here, hopefully no cables come out. Yeah. Okay. So before I go further into this idea, I'd like to briefly reflect on how we got where we are today. And this conference in itself is an example of the way things are advancing quite rapidly. We can easily trace two trends. And on one side, we have the trends of task-based language teaching, which you are, I'm sure, far more expert in that field. I know that the coordinators of this project are far more expert in that field than I am. But in general, CLT gave rise, communicative language teaching, to task-based language teaching. Then some academic debates on how you define tasks, et cetera, in the 1990s. And then from about 2005 onward, there came more recognition of the importance of contextual factors in TBLT. And you can see a parallel in the use of ICT as well. First, ICT is in there, and there's this idea that we all have to become techies. We have to become very, very knowledgeable in how to program, et cetera, et cetera. And then as technology became more user-friendly, it became more just a knowledge of how to apply what is already user-friendly programs. And about parallel 2005 onward, more the idea of integrating these technologies into an entire, more holistic process. So I may be wrong as to the parallels of this, because as I said, I'm sure you're far more experts in TBLT than I am. But as, excuse me if I mispronounce the surname here, Kut, as Kut, yes, is he here? Correct pronunciation? Yes, okay. Has said there's a convergence of TBLT facilitated through ICT, although it's not without its challenges. So, and as Lopez, and that would be a Spanish pronunciation, Lopez, has also mentioned that technology-mediated contexts have been left aside a little bit, and that there's a need to meet the rapidly changing, as he said, prerequisites, constraints, and potentials of ICT. But I would say that there's also a need to meet these prerequisites, constraints, and affordances of the world of communication. That there needs to be, it's not just looking at constraints and potentials of ICT, but it's also looking at the constraints and potentials of communication through the ICT. In the sense that more and more there's a need for global citizens. It's become quite the buzzword now of global citizens, without any clear definition of who or what is a global citizen, of course. And parallel to that is this idea of a need to be competent communicators in both face-to-face and digital or virtual environments. That is very much linked to the idea of a global citizen nowadays in current world. As I've said before, I've begun calling it, there's the need to e-function, yeah? To cope personally and professionally, we tend to focus more on the professional, but it's also personal. We're in and off, out virtually, and in and off, out on simultaneously. It's become such an important part of our lives, and yet it's not playing a principal role in our classroom practices. This was published recently, 2016, which means, those of you who've done any publishing, that I started writing this in 2013, finished it 2014. So I was writing this 2-3 years ago, and as I was flying from London to Spain on Sunday, I came across a magazine in the British Airways called Business Life, which I felt very validated, because I wrote that 3 or 4 years ago, and now in April 2016, in an article called How to Future-Proof Your Career for Tomorrow's Market. It said we need cross-cultural dexterity, which has been talked about by Lopes. Geek acumen, I love that term, geek acumen. You gotta be a geek. Geek is sexy nowadays. You embrace technology, Big Bang has made geekiness sexy. And virtual collaboration, which we've been promoting, and in fact, I have to here mention my colleague, Tom Conrad, is the first person to introduce me to the idea of telecollaborating, so I have to thank him for me being here in more ways than one. Things that it's been on the fringe of education for many years, but now it is being accepted in everyday life as a competence our students are going to need. To give you an idea of how I see the future, because the title is Trends, I'm going to give you a short video. It's little clips that I've taken of a longer video about the use of haptic devices, it brings your senses into the communication, okay? Let's see if this works. Yeah, okay, good.
I think that's made up. Anyway, and CNN is promising to bring this election in your face by putting it on your face.
CNN is turning up the technology as we get deeper into the presidential race. Next month, it will break new ground by live streaming the next primary debate in virtual reality. With the help of a virtual reality headset, users can actually watch the debates from the perspective of an audience member.
Woohoo! The perspective of an audience member. Your view could go from this to this. And Republican debate with this technology and has made it available for download now. Yes, with these bad boys strapped on, I can summit Everest, fly on a dragon, or stand 20 feet away from Mike Huckabee. Put this bad boy on. Okay. All right. I got this thing. Are we fired up here? Okay. Let me start up the Republican debate. Wow! Wow! Look at that. It really feels like I'm sitting and watching something I can see on TV. There's the back of Arnold Schwarzenegger's head. It kind of looks like the front of his head. Well, hello there, little lady. Mind if I have a few of your cheese fries? Those are delicious. Did you see that guy on TV who was petting Rand Paul's head? That was me. Oh, hello, officer. Was this your seat? I'm sorry. Oh, is this your cheese fries? Oh, and is this your wife? Get your hands off me, sir. I will get you more cheese fries.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm a big fan of Stephen Colbert. Well, let's see if this works. All right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Before you say, okay, yeah, fine, right, virtual reality in the classroom, which I've had many people say this to me before, I think we need to recognize that all technology that is invented eventually becomes part of our lives. In 1876, there was a prediction that telephone would never be taken seriously as a means of communication. 1981, cell phones, no way, they're not going to replace landlines. And in 1995, someone predicted the internet would be dead within a year, right? Of course, that's hindsight, and it's easy to see that this was wrong, but the virtual reality can and actually is part of language classrooms. I want to show you a short clip of a project that I'm taking part in.
I see boy. I see refugee stations. No, it's a stone. No, house, I thought. Oh my god! Oh! Fan vad jag gjorde! It was a boy
This is part of a, let me make sure that I'm here again. Yes, this was part of a telecollaborative project where the students were studying the Syrian refugee crisis and working together to try to come up with solutions in their own towns to mobilize the local population. And that's a movie called Displaced. It's about Syrian refugees, and when he turns around, he's, oh my God, there's something very scary because he's living the life of the refugees. Something very scary in the background of that. So the virtual reality was also used to help them explore each other's towns. These glasses cost €6, right? They're not the very expensive Sony ones, obviously. So. The point I'm trying to make is that humans adapt to the technology, we integrate, we mediate through our interaction through life, through the way we work, whether it's with sticks and stones or whether it's haptic devices such as wearing glasses, etc., etc. This is how we communicate, and it's socially and culturally regulated, constituted, and co-constructed. And part of our job is to teach our students how to use these appropriately. And as I said, this is socially constructed because in 1910, I found this extract from a journal or magazine in 1910 where they're arguing about the correct way to answer the phone, the telephone, which was becoming more popular. And it was, the debate was answering hello was rude. Right? So again, this is a good demonstration of how it's not something that's just natural, it's something that we have to study, the semiotics, the pragmatics of how to use the technology that's becoming more and more influential in our lives. In other words, 21st century competences doesn't just mean knowing how to use the technology, and we as language teachers are pivotal to this learning and to this knowledge. So, we need to expand our horizons, our classrooms, our own way of teaching, and I'm a firm believer in telecollaboration as a means to that end. It also means taking into consideration much more than the language, the intercultural competences, as Raul, who is the host of this, has pointed out very well. There's a need for special training of our students, and I would say also special training for ourselves in that sense, in cultural decoding. But I include here cultural decoding of what some people have called the third space, such as wearing the virtual glasses, you know not to flirt with the police officer's wife, as we saw the comedian do. Another example I gave yesterday to some teachers was my first time in Second Life as an avatar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. My avatar was told to move out of another avatar's personal space. And I panicked and just clicked off, left Second Life. What I did not know is that when you click off and leave Second Life, your avatar goes into a default mode of sleep. So my avatar went from dancing, yes, I was in a discotheque, and I danced into someone's personal space, so it went from dancing to this, which is not that bad if you think about it, but if you think about the fact that smartphones, virtual reality, are eventually going to become part where we will be sitting at a meeting. I believe we will be sitting at a meeting where there'll be one person face-to-face, a virtual avatar, another person. It's around the corner. If you don't know that your avatar should not go to sleep, should not go into default mode in a meeting with your boss, you might get in trouble. Right? So this is also, for me, part of this cultural decoding, is learning to interpret the new ways of communicating. So, in a way, we need to funnel all our teaching through purposeful use of languages to carry out authentic meaning-making activities, and as I said, I believe telecollaboratively can be one of those means. There have been a lot of different ways of talking about telecollaboration. I'm not going to go over all the titles, but they have some general ideas. The use of internet, connecting, language, learners, learning, and exchanges. And if we look at that, those are definitions that have been around for quite some time. If we look at that, sure, I agree. But I think we also need to recognize that technological advances, it's not just with internet anymore. I think students nowadays would probably connect more through mobile phones than through internet. But the connection is still there, which is key for us as language teachers. It's not just languages anymore. We can't claim to be the only ones, so I think here, CLIL is a very important role for us. Learners are still the central focus, not technology. It's still learners. Learning, hopefully, most definitely, we hope, yes. And as to the type of exchange, is it info, just sitting down chatting, or is it more into more elaborate projects? So there have been a lot of different types of tasks, digitally mediated tasks. Maybe it's just a standalone, one-time thing, interviewing experts, explaining experiences, or what I've called task cycles, or some people call projects, which are more sequenced together. One task, an online meeting leads into another activity, which leads into other activities, and a final output. Creating knowledge together, teaching each other, studying together. There's many different examples of this. And telecollaboration has also been applied across many different areas, including autonomous learners. But my main interest, and I think where we can have the most impact, is in the last one, technology-enhanced project-based language learning, or task cycles. So, here you have a definition I came up with recently for telecollaboration. I just want to emphasize the word embedded. It's not alongside, it's integrated, and it's got to promote dialogue. It's got to promote dialogical learning, reflection, social constructivism, and it's based on social interaction. And I'm going to ask Antonio to let me know if I'm running out of time. Yeah? Okay. Or if you get bored, tell me. Yeah? So, there's many different types of collaboration. I just want to give you something that when we talk about task cycles and we telecollaboration, I just want to show you very quickly. Well, okay. Yeah. Sure. Why not? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Nope. Right, it worked yesterday. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. This was just like a little thermometer-looking thing that I invented that looks like a collaborator meter. And on the lower scale would be information exchange, what I call show and tell, right? Information exchange, and then a little bit higher would be sort of a give and take type of collaboration where locally one group does part of a task and then virtually, digitally hands over that task for someone else to work on. So, and then up at the very top would be cogwheels, what I call cogwheel type collaboration, which is it's completely interdependent. Everything that's being done is that each party involved in the telecollaboration is dependent on the other, right? So it doesn't go, okay. Promise this worked yesterday. Okay, as it's been pointed out, there are a lot of challenges for doing TBLT, and I think that these same challenges are equally applicable to what I'm calling small c LT, telecollaborative language teaching. It may be even multiply just a little bit. The time and effort needed. There's been loads of studies, and this is the first thing that teachers say, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Yeah, it does. Full stop. We'll come back to that. Lack of institutional, colleague, and parental support. Yes, I agree. Does not easily merge with teacher-centered practices. I also agree on that one. The teacher has to move aside and facilitate things. Lesser used languages are hard to partner. We could go on. This list is just a few of the many, many, many different things that people have said, yes, but telecollaborating, using tasks, carrying tasks out in telecollaboration, it's too hard. Yes, but as teachers, it's up to us to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, because we're asking our students to do the same thing. So we've got to be willing to also push ourselves outside the comfort zone. I just mentioned a rather unpleasant event I had learning how to use Second Life. But you got to start somewhere. As we were discussing this morning, I've been telecollaborating for about 15 years, and for the last 13 years, it's been with the same partner, which is interesting because, as I mentioned too, that's longer than my marriage lasted. So there are good things that can come out of telecollaborating. My first years, does anyone remember Smooze? No? You do. Yeah, this was before Google, Facebook, what else? Twitter, Instagram. I mean, it was before any of this existed. We started telecollaborating. Not easy to do, but you get somewhere. Our student reports look like this. We were killing a lot of trees, yeah. And now our collaboration, we include things from Second Life with avatars, and a student report looks like this. Bye. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Okay. Maybe, yeah. Okay, are you all answering emails? Because it was very fast yesterday. Right. Yeah, it worked. It even worked this morning, so, okay. Try one more time. Is it because someone has logged that we need to have a user ID, maybe? Well, it doesn't matter. Never mind. Open the call sign on the computer. You have the internet connection. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have the link. I don't know.
You don't have the link?
No.
Oh, yes. It's embedded.
Yeah, it's embedded. I don't know the link. Doesn't matter. Okay. Well, in any case, it was just an example of for me, one of an absolutely exemplar type of video produced by students reflecting on their experience with telecollaboration. One of many, many, many different outputs showing their communicative competence of the teachers. Now, I'm hoping, really hoping that this video works, because this is an example of why I believe we need to be using task-based language teaching telecollaboratively. We'll see. No. Okay. Yeah. Well, none of it's working. She's witness. It all worked yesterday. I only have 10 minutes left. Antonio, es igual. I only have 10 minutes left, so. Yeah, it's because you're. Okay. As I said at the very beginning, this is what happens when you use technology. And I'm going to take this moment to my advantage to explain that if we have a chance, we'll actually see videos of this, of a telecollaborative project that I took part in with 6-year-olds who were in their first year of English. And they were telecollaborating from Catalonia and Austria. And they learned a lot. I'm not going to go into details about what they learned. But one of the incidental language learning that took place is they learned to say to the teacher, whose name was Maria, "Oh, well, Maria, technology problems. Doesn't matter." And these were 6-year-olds. So again, it's all about communication. It's all about knowing how to communicate in that moment at that time. So thank you. We'll see now if it works, okay?
Excellent.
Come on, Leah, you have to say hello.
Hi. You have to be in the picture. We only see 4 of you.
Three.
I mean 3, sorry. Are there 4 of you? No.
Just 3, yes?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought there were 4.
Why don't we put that
Backwards.
Can you see all 4 of them?
No. Can you see closer? Yeah, now yes. Okay, why don't you start introducing yourselves? Saying your name.
Okay.
Hi,
my name is Brian.
Okay, right.
My name is Alejandro.
My name is Lea.
And my name is Martí.
Okay, my name is Johanna. And my name is Petall.
And my name is Ludwig.
Okay. So, what? So, bye-bye.
No.
So, hi, I'm the teacher. Hi, I'm Alex. Hello, how are you guys? Are you excited about the project? Yes. Good, excellent. So, as a junior researchers, because you are like kind of experts, can you tell them what you are more or less doing? Bye!
Talk to them. No, we're leaving. You guys stay and talk.
No. Me?
Yeah.
Alejandro. It's your time. No, my time no. It's our time. Our time. No, our time.
Did you need to say anything to...
Excuse me?
Do you want to tell us anything?
Do you have some Facebook?
I don't have Facebook.
No.
Okay.
I only have Instagram, Snapchat, and WhatsApp. I only have those.
Okay.
Okay, it's probably not the best example of telecollaboration in the world, but I wanted to bring it in because I think it's really important, because as you can see at the beginning of this, while the teachers were in the room, the teacher dominated the conversation. There was silence, and it was the teacher who couldn't handle the silence, and she immediately jumped in and said, "Okay, so what's your names," etc., etc. And I forced the teacher out of the room. She didn't want to go, but I had arranged a meeting with the other teacher in another room, made her leave. They panicked, as you saw. No, right? They talked banalities, yes, but for 45 minutes after we left. We had to go in and to tell them to go home basically. So again, it's not the best example of it's not task-based in this sense. It was just getting to know each other at that point. But it is an example of how I truly believe that this type of collaboration and this type of exchange is what we are looking for as teachers, is for them to learn to negotiate meaning, for them to self-repair as they've done here. You see in the 2 minutes of this, you see so much language use and learning going on that it's amazing. And the teacher didn't believe it when she saw the video. So, yeah. Okay, this is another example. It's very short, and I'm not going to show it. This is the young 6-year-olds, and it's them in control of the communication technology here. But I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to show it. Future trends, I really don't know. I'm not good at predicting, apart from beyond that in a few minutes we'll have a coffee break. And I cheated on that because I looked at the program. But I do think there's some things, that I do think that there's some things that we should be aware of, and I've already brought them up. I do believe that we need to be aware of how technology is developing and trying to bring that into our classroom as much as possible. We're getting online education is going to force us to rethink how we deal with students, because if they're given an option of either at age 16 coming and sitting 8 hours in our class or to do it online, they're going to choose online. This is going to have serious repercussions on funding and on buildings, et cetera, on the physical reality of schooling. More and more we're going to see educators need to be in touch with the real world, with partners in areas where they explain to us what competences they're looking for. And as I said, I believe that there'll be much more virtual reality in the classrooms. Let's see. Sorry. I can't see what I'm doing. I'm getting old here. As my colleague, Dr. Tom Conrad, has pointed out, central to this role is our prepared teachers, right? So it's kind of scary when we think about the fact that we're preparing our students for competences and jobs that may not even exist yet. Yeah, I try to think about that myself, and I said, well, I really don't know. But I think that it's up to us to, as I said, to move out of our comfort zone. And as you're doing, as you've pointed out, TBLT is difficult, but we need to find ways to do this in a way that will become meaningful for our students. So, in brief, our task as teachers to design TBLT environments so our students have the cross-cultural dexterity and geek acumen necessary for virtual collaboration required for current and future jobs. If you recall, those straight out of the magazine of business life as to the requirements for students in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
I
Melinda.
apologize for the videos. I knew it would happen.
Well, that's the problem with technology-mediated conferences. Thank you, Melinda. It was very, very interesting, and I'm sure you all have lots and lots of questions. So we'll open now the question and answer session. I myself have a couple of questions, but I'm going to leave that for later. Yes, please, Yelena? That's a very good question, and I'm not sure I have the answer. No, my colleague
that I telecollaborate with is a fanatic of Second Life, so he introduced me into it. He works with students who are all levels, so there are some secondary. Most of my students are primary ed teachers and see no purpose to learning about Second Life because they can't take children into it. That said, we used avatars to create machinima. Because the students were learning about healthy habits. And you can do things to avatars that you can't ask the students to do. So if you tell your students, go home and only eat chocolate and hamburgers for a month, the parents get angry with you. And they won't do it. But you can do that to an avatar, and Hungry Helga can grow bigger and bigger. Or Smelly Susan, who doesn't take a shower for a month, can have flies buzzing around her avatar head, right? So we made machinima. We used avatars for creating environments for the students to study as little scientists. And then they exchanged information about their case studies. So, but I also do believe that it's eventually a competence we're going to have to be able to deal with, that we're going to have to deal with dealing face-to-face and virtual at the same time. There are billboards now that are interactive. I don't know if you've seen these. Have you seen these billboards? And people are completely shocked when, as they're walking by, the billboard talks to them or reacts to them. So it's here, I believe, eventually. And as I tried to show, I mean, integrate the technology, once it's out there, it becomes part of our lives. So. Exactly. Holograms. They exist now, the holograms. That's what I meant, a hologram avatar. Yeah, and you can't sit on a hologram avatar, for example. You're not supposed to sit in their laps, I guess. You know, I don't know. This is what I'm trying to say. We have to learn to adapt. I also think that if we push our students to experiment with these things, they'll be more mentally flexible to accept whatever comes later on. It may fall by the wayside, but as one of my student teachers said, okay, I learned to deal with the fact that I had a chair stuck on my bum in Second Life and didn't know how to get it off. I've got over that, now I can deal with anything. So.
Further questions? Well,
That's a very interesting question. We make our students sign telecollaborative contracts, like learning contracts, and part of that is then one of those is being aware of intercultural differences and knowing how to discuss any problems that arise, whether and analyzing whether they're intercultural or interpersonal. Because I do think that those are two separate things. And we also have periodic debriefing of the meetings. For small children, it's harder to do. We're still struggling. And if anybody is working on how to measure and assess intercultural competences with small children, I'd love to talk to you. With older students, it's easier. We also ask for a reflective diary. Telecollaboration, you mean? Yeah. I've done telecollaboration from age 6 all the way up to adults.
Yeah, because it's interesting you mentioned the future jobs. A lot of people, specifically in Spain, they're learning English or teaching for the purpose of getting a job, which is it's not just a language, as you pointed out very well. So I'm just interested, what were the results of that?
Reticence would be the word I would use. A lot of reticence, but they eventually realize I'm already using technology, and we try to start out with adults, try to start out with the technology they're comfortable with, and then slowly introduce others. We don't throw them into Second Life right away. They would die. They would be gone immediately. But I would say reticence, and I more and more I'm starting to believe that we need to go through smartphones, because they're used to it and they can handle it. My sound left.
Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. I worked on a European project that just finished, that we developed what we called the TEP, Telecollaboratively Efficient Person Portfolio. And as what I was saying about the cultural decoding, that is part of the real life. If the communication breakdown, Skype meetings dropping, and knowing how to handle that is, for me, as much a communicative competence as knowing intercultural competence, as knowing the language itself, knowing how to deal with that if the person on the other side drops or if you drop. So I think that it's good that it happens. As I said, the students were like, oh, well, 6-year-olds, oh, well, Maria, technology problems. They didn't say technological. Technology problems. And that's part of the reflection that goes into the diary that I mentioned, is what problems did you have? How do you deal with it? Because you can judge people wrongly by their technological incompetence. But for example, I'm tying this back to the other answer that I gave. We teach our students how to make PowerPoint presentations, and yes, they still happen, but there's also virtual presentations going on nowadays, and they need to know how to do that. So, there will be breakdowns, so it's good that they learn to deal with them, I think. I wouldn't be afraid of them. It's learning how to deal with them. And one other point, though, is that you should always have a telephone number of your telecollaborative partner. Don't just trust internet.
And eventually the post address, if he needs to send a letter, if everything else fails. Any further questions, please? Well, I have a question myself. The title of your presentation, or part of the title of your presentation, is "What are our tasks as teachers?" Well, apparently one of the tasks that we saw on the video was the teacher leaving the room. So my question is, are we supposed to leave the room so that students can feel a bit more autonomous and free to speak? Are we inhibiting communication within this type of tasks, technology-mediated tasks in the classroom?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. In this case, I think we did the right thing, because the teacher had very teacher-centered practices. And whether it was because the researchers were in the room and she felt inhibited, and the silence obviously made her very uncomfortable. Perhaps she felt like she was being judged as a teacher. So yeah, I think that we need to give them space. Yes, definitely, definitely. I mean, you've got to know your group, and you've got to know how autonomous they are, and you have to build up that autonomy. You can't just throw them in there, but what we did here, yes, I trusted him. But yeah, I do think we need to step away from it. Yeah. If you've designed a good task and a good task sequence with clear written and oral instructions, they can do it. I firmly believe that. They can do it.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I think what would have been helpful in that case if the students
They did have some directives that they had to find out about each other. That was their very first meeting. But I completely agree with you. If there's not a purpose for the meeting, it's like saying to someone, oh, go to a party and introduce yourself and talk. I wouldn't do it.
Because they, at the first moment, it seemed like it was really a strange situation to them.
It was a strange situation for them. Yes, it definitely was. Yeah. So something we usually do as well is we have weekly meetings, and I think we have to stop. There's always a group leader. The first meeting, there's a group leader assigned, and after that, they have to decide who's going to be the group leader in the next session. So I think that's also handing off the responsibility of the meeting to someone else, to the students, is useful. So.
Well, thank you, Melinda. Now it's 10:05. If there are no further questions, we will finish the session by now. And so you have the conference program with you. We have other parallel sessions. The next session in this room is going to be a workshop. So for those who are interested in attending the workshop, you can stay. Otherwise, you can then choose another room and another session. Thank you so much.